Hey folks, another video from Bookham Cemetery, just off the Hume Highway on the way down to Gundagai from Sydney. I've just pulled over here because I know there's some excellent central tablelands, southern tablelands trees here that you can easily put in your repertoire. And what you notice on the tablelands is you do get another stringybark, but because you're off the coast of New South Wales, the sort of possibilities for the stringybark start to get very sort of limited and very easy. This is a very shortly fibrous stringybark, maybe not like the coastal ones, but you can see, hopefully you can see that nice stringybark there. It goes all the way to the top of the tree. And there's just a copse of them here in amongst the Eucalyptus polyanthemos that I've just profiled. And there's some other trees around like Eucalyptus blakeleyi. But it's a great place here just to pick up some really easy and common tableland species. Now I've liberated a branch in really good fashion, typical fashion. Can start looking at the foliage. I've just got some fruit in my hand and I want to try and keep it because for this video I couldn't get a lot of fruit. But let's just look at the foliage to start with. Over where my car's parked, there's a dead wombat and a dead kangaroo, and the smell is unbelievable. The leaves are sort of, they've got a hint of blue in them. They're a little bit sort of bluey green. You wouldn't say they were totally green a lot of the time for this guy. They've got the oblique bases a lot of the time. Just showing that one and showing that one there. Doesn't quite have it. You can see they're not overly long, but that can probably differ from place to place. This species is Eucalyptus macrorhyncha, red stringybark. And it's the most common stringybark on the tablelands and western slopes of New South Wales. And if you're going to be on the southern tablelands, and I'd say the central tablelands, you can't get it wrong. Where they get complicated is when you get up into the Hunter Valley and possibly areas, I think around Lithgow, then further up into the Hunter Valley and up into the northern tablelands, you can get a few more rare ones that are very similar to macrorhyncha. But in the central and southern tablelands, it's really easy. It's a real straightforward ID most of the time, pretty much 99% of the time. I can't think of any other stringybarks you might confuse it with. Once you get around Goulburn, Bathurst, out to say Parks, you know, around where I'm heading, Gundagai, Tumut, areas like that. It's hard to, you hardly get any other stringybark out there. So the leaves they've always got a good dash of blue in them to me. They're more on the green side, but they're just slightly bluey green. A lot more than the stringybarks in Sydney. And apart from Eucalyptus agglomerata. Just breaking off some more here. Hopefully you can see that typical uneven leaf base. If I turn the leaves over, yeah, they're pretty much, yeah, these ones might be a little bit discolorous, just a little bit. And I do concede the adult leaves of stringybarks can be a little bit discolorous. I just don't think they're strongly discolorous, but they're a little bit maybe on this slightly younger foliage. If I turn this leaf over, which is a lot more green than its neighbouring bluey ones, that's concolorous. I know it's got a lot of sort of leaf attack on there, but that one's pretty much concolorous. I'm just going to get some more. These guys here, they can get to that size. You know, we're looking at up to 15 centimetres long, maybe 30 mil wide. And yeah, if I look with the naked eye, yeah, they might be just discolorous, but they're not strongly. They're pretty much the same shade on either side. maybe just slightly paler on the underside. But one of the things about macrorhyncha is these buds. Just check these buds out. They got this really strong little attenuate operculum on them. And what I match that to, and I don't mean to confuse you, what I match that to is river red gum. River red gum does a similar thing. I haven't made a video on that yet, but it does a similar thing with that operculum. It's not a really long operculum. It's only about 5 mil long, and it might get a little bit longer, but it's only about 5 mil, but it puts a really conspicuous point on it. Very different to all the Sydney stringybarks I've profiled. Here's some more here. A whole heap of them. So as soon as you see those buds doing that, it's pretty much assured, in this part of the world anyway, that it's macrorhyncha. Again, the ones up north, you just got to get familiar with those. There's a couple that mimic macrorhyncha, I think. I just can't think of the names off the top of my head, but it's sort of the Hunter Valley and onwards where they can get a bit tricky. But down here, it's a total default. Really easy, and it does make up a lot of vegetation communities. Macrorhyncha can be really ubiquitous in the habitats out here. It'll happily grow on the top of the hill, and it will happily grow down the bottom of the hill. So, you know, I don't really have any hills here, but there's some mountains, little mountains there in the distance. It'll grow up the top of the hill with things like Eucalyptus rossii, possibly polyanthemos, and it'll happily grow lower down with things like Blakeleyi and Meliodora in the grassy box woodland. Here there's a lot of polyanthemos, and there's also Goniocalyx over there, the longleaf box. That's another one there. I might drop in and do that one on the way home. But it's not really good for PCT or plant community type determination, because it's a part of every sort of PCT. Now, I struggled to get fruits, but I had to look at the ground. So I'll just try and put them in my hands here. That's typical what you get for macrorhyncha. They've got this sort of big, fat, sort of raised disc, which sort of slopes up, as you can see. And they're not clustered as much as something like Capitulata or Globoidia. You can see they've got a genuine pedicel there on the fruit. And they've just got a big sort of fat, rounded look to them. They're a little bit stringy bark, but they're sort of a bit different as well. And I really need to find other examples. But look, if I get on the ground, I'm just going to find probably repeats of this sort of thing. I'm pretty sure the buds can be in 7s to 15s. The buds I've got here, yeah, that one's, I've got one in 11 here, and I've got another one in 7. So I'd say they're 7 to 15. And then you've just got to try and get hold of these fruits as well. Not the best examples, but that's typically what you find when you pick them up. You just got to look for this sort of, they're sort of wider than tall. This one would be about 10 mil across. And they've just got that nice, genuine, rounded disc with the valves up the top. It's almost getting towards a red gum fruit, sort of a red gum fruit, a little bit like a fat pterodocornis or something like that. That's how I sort of link them, I guess, to other things that I know. So they're just not heavily clustered like the other stringybarks are, or some of the stringybarks that we've gone through. I'm probably not going to do any value adding by walking around, but I'm just walking around because I did pick these ones up off the ground. And as we know, sometimes with the ukes, that's all we can do. I've looked at a lot of low branches before I started the video, and there's just no fruit to be had, although there's a fair few buds you can find. Yeah, a nice branch would be good, but they're just never around when you want them. But basically, once again, that's what you're going to get. That sort of thing going on. I like that one there. That's a really good example. Just there. So that's Eucalyptus macrorhyncha. red stringy bark, it gets called. Such a common tree on the tablelands, and you won't really find them in Sydney. The closest they'll get is probably somewhere like Lithgow. I have collected them on the road to Lithgow, like places around Hartley and Little Hartley. They're on the side of the road. Here we go, I just found these on the ground. That's a bit nicer. I think the shade helps a bit. Yeah, that's good. Looks like that one's got exserted valves. It's got the valves sticking up there. And just that nice, fat, really rounded fruit. I like it, especially the rounded top bit. You can see the definite line, the Eucalyptus scar there. I'll just see if I can look at the top of them. Oh, I've already lost one. They're a bit degraded. Yeah, that one's got 3 valves. That one's got 3 as well. They might be described as having 3 to 4. I think a lot of the stringy barks are. Exerted valves there, you can see. Strongly exerted valves. Let's just have another look at those. Yeah, you can see those there. Beautiful. So just remember those buds and the bluey green leaves. But really what will help you is just this part of the world. You know, once you're on the tablelands, once you're well and truly off the coastal subdivisions into the tablelands, growing with all the other usual suspects like Melliodora, Polyanthemos, Blakeleyi. That's your typical Eucalyptus macrorhyncha. This one had sort of shortly fibrous stringy bark, but you should be able to discern the stringy bark, no problems at all. Just this one just seems to be shortly fibrous, but that might be what you get sometimes. So an easy one for you to learn, I think. Alrighty.